Donald Trump is panicking as more American troops are being sent to the Middle East right now. On the one hand, Donald Trump is saying that Iran wants to make a deal and that the war is essentially over. On the other hand, Donald Trump is sending the George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group to the Middle East with thousands of American soldiers, a clear sign of escalation, and of course, the blockade by the United States regarding the Persian Gulf, a clear sign of escalation as well. That's how it's being interpreted by Iran and the rest of the world. And so it does seem, folks, that behind the scenes, things may be escalating as Donald Trump tries to manipulate the market. The commander of Iran's military spokesperson said the following: "We will not allow any export or import activity in the Gulf and the Sea of Oman. If the American blockade continues, our armed forces will not allow trade to flow through the Red Sea if the naval blockade continues. If America continues its naval blockade, this will be considered a prelude to violating the ceasefire." So the United States has this blockade of the Persian Gulf in order to open up the Strait of Hormuz. The United States' plan was to further block the Strait of Hormuz and not let any ships through, although it says there are some exceptions. And now Iran is saying publicly what I told you they were going to be saying a few days ago, which is we're going to be focused on shutting down not just the Persian Gulf if you continue this blockade, but the Red Sea. We will activate the Houthis in Yemen, and they will basically shut down the Red Sea and the commerce there, which would cause oil to dramatically increase in price. And it's notable as well, and I talked about this morning, that U.S. aircraft carrier strike group, the George H.W. Bush carrier strike group, they're not traveling through the Red Sea. They're taking a very long route down past Africa, because they're afraid of the Houthis in the Red Sea. And that's sending a message to all of those ships in the Persian Gulf that are thinking about crossing the Strait of Hormuz, that if United States aircraft strike group, right, carrier strike group is not going through the Red Sea with a proxy group of Iran that potentially controls that area, what kind of weak message does that send to the Persian Gulf? I think that's important to note. Iran's Fars news agency claims that an Iranian supertanker was also able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz despite the U.S. blockade. We've been talking about this Malawian flagship, which is really Chinese-backed, the Rich Starry being able to get through the blockade. And we're hearing lots of stories, though, about these other tankers and other cargo ships as well being able to evade the U.S. blockade. The U.S. Ships will give a warning. The cargo ships or the tankers that are trying to evade the blockade, they're not even hiding. I mean, they have their signaling on, and they just ignore the warnings and they just go right through. And so we're seeing a lot of that testing of the U.S. blockade and seeing if the U.S. is going to shoot. And so far, there have been some ships that have gone through. We're basically seeing similar patterns to what existed before the U.S. Blockade. I mean, certain ships are getting out, certain ships are getting in, but by and large, very little activity through the Strait of Hormuz, which is bad for the entire world economy and just a bad strategy. If the goal is to open the Hormuz while in negotiations to do a blockade, to me, that's not an effective negotiating strategy, where Iran's been saying, if you have to respect our sovereignty, you have to agree to certain concessions, and we'll, be able to maybe find a deal. And Donald Trump keeps on doing the threats. And, that's a war path that Donald Trump's on. Like, the war path and the negotiation path are a bit distinct paths. And Trump treats the negotiation as the war. And I think that's one of the fatal flaws in what he's doing, what he's always done his entire life. I mean, Iran's been mocking him all morning. Their various social media accounts are posting things like this. A headline that reads, "Trump trapped in a ditch and still digging deeper with latest blunder." And then the Iranian social media account says, "Deeper hole or use our hand to save himself." They then, and the Iranian social media accounts show Donald Trump's post from a while back where he said it's going to be unconditional surrender for Iran. And then the Iranian social media accounts write, "You were talking, with an emoji wearing sunglasses. The Iranian social media accounts are posting these AI images of Donald Trump as a baby with a video game controller looking at a video game called Hormuz Strait. And then the Iranian embassies, right? Not a game, kiddo. They show keys to the Strait of Hormuz, and the Iranian media accounts, right? Social media accounts, right? The Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz are our home. And then they're just mocking Donald Trump's post, like Donald Trump did a post today where he said, China is very happy that I am permanently opening the Strait of Hormuz. I am doing it for them also, and the world. The situation will never happen again. They have agreed not to send weapons to Iran. President Xi will give me a big, fat hug when I get there in a few weeks. We are working together smartly and very well. Doesn't that beat fighting? But remember, we are very good at fighting if we have to, far better than anyone else. DJT, President DJT. I mean, isn't that like one of the strangest messages ever? I mean, this is what he posts every day because he's a deranged lunatic, but saying, I can't wait to get a big fat hug from Xi Jinping. And he tells me he's not helping Iran at all, but we're ready to fight if we have to. And by the way, how is Iran interpreting that? They're mocking him. They're mocking him. They're doing memes that mock him because he is presenting very cognitively impaired. And they see it. They've analyzed it. They know that it's weakness, not even masquerading as strength. It's weakness masquerading as weirdness. Donald Trump doubled down on his Jesus posts. Remember, after he did the AI image of himself as Jesus, now he does an AI image of Jesus hugging him. And then Donald Trump goes, the radical left lunatics might not like this, but I think it's quite nice. DJT. And it's a photo of Jesus hugging him. And then it says, I was never a very religious man, but doesn't it seem with all these satanic, demonic, child-sacrificing monsters being exposed that God might be playing his trump card? Y'all are covering up the Epstein files. You are literally covering up a child sex trafficking ring. Yesterday, Pam Bondi refused to show up for a deposition on the Epstein files because you all say because she's no longer the Attorney General, she doesn't have to talk about the cover-up that she was involved in. I mean, you are the satanic, demonic people that you're referencing there. Iran mocking Donald Trump's Jesus post. They did a whole video, one of these Lego videos. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm not going to play it, but it's called Fake Jesus. And they did a musical, Fake Jesus, and they repeat it over again while Donald Trump does all of these deranged things. Then Donald Trump gave an interview with Maria Bartiromo this morning from State Regime Media, which calls itself Fox. And then Donald Trump's like, I had to go to war. I had no choice. Here, play this clip.
I had to go and fight either a military operation. Some people would call it a war. Some people call it a military operation. It was easy because we have the greatest military in the world. But I had to divert because if I didn't do that, right now you would have Iran with a nuclear weapon. And if they had a nuclear weapon, you would be calling everybody over there, sir. And you don't want to do that.
Well, you keep.
Then he claims that all of the countries in the Middle East were shocked, I tell you, that Iran attacked them and, well, their American military interests that were in those countries after Iran was invaded. And all those countries knew that that was what was going to happen. They were all warning Donald Trump about that. But Donald Trump didn't give any of these Arab nations notice, and he went it alone with him and Netanyahu, while there was a settlement discussion taking place with Iran. And when the mediator from Oman, a neutral third party that the U.S. picked, said that there was basically a deal reached for Iran to stop enriching uranium, they announced it. And that's when the U.S. chose to invade. And everybody knew what was going to happen. We knew the Strait of Hormuz would be closed. We knew Iran would attack its name. Everybody, I've been talking about that since January. I mean, and even before then. But play this clip.
Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, countries that were shocked when they got hit. You know, these countries were not expected to be hit because they were going after those countries. They were going over to take over the Middle East, and we stopped them.
Then Donald Trump brags about Xi Jinping sending him a beautiful letter. Play this clip.
With very well, just wrote me a beautiful letter.
He wrote you a letter?
Yeah, he did. He responded to a letter that I wrote because I had heard that China is giving weapons to, you're seeing it all over the place, to Iran, that China's
Did he
giving
say he's
weapons.
giving them?
Yeah, and I wrote him a letter asking him not to do that. And he wrote me a letter saying that essentially he's not doing that.
Okay. Well,
He then attacks Italy, and he says, people just don't like it. I want to call it the Strait of Trump, not the Strait of Hormuz. Here, play this clip.
do we still have the same relationship with Italy right now and Giorgia Meloni?
No. She's been negative. Anybody that turned us down for helping with this Iran situation, we do not have the same relationship. Just so you know, Italy gets a lot of oil from the Strait. You can call it the Strait of Hormuz or the Hormuz Strait. I said, which is better? They said, either is okay, but you can call it either one. The only thing you can't call it is the Trump Strait. They don't like that idea. By the way, speaking of that, I did a thing that people like very much, except for Mexico. I took the Gulf of Mexico. We now call it the Gulf of America. That's not bad.
And Google changed it. I know that.
And Google,
but look, did you see
and by the way, Google was great on that.
Did you see?
Then Donald Trump keeps saying how great everything is. It was like the greatest year. Play this clip.
When somebody gets elected president, that party always loses the midterms. I don't know why. Nobody can explain it. I ask people that are deep into the psychological world, I said, why is it that a voter votes for the opposite party? Even when you have a good president, I think I had the greatest year, the greatest opening year. I've read the greatest, look, I ended 8 wars. A 9th is coming, but I ended 8 wars. Nobody's ever ended 1 war. Who's ended 1? Nobody. I ended 8. We have the biggest tax cuts ever. We have the biggest regulation cuts ever. The greatest economy ever, pretty much including the fact that I took a detour into Iran in order to stop something that could have destroyed the world, right?
Then attacks Europe. I'll show you this clip. Let's play it.
Did you see Europe is now drafting a program and plan to open up the Hormuz Strait without the United States?
They're so sad. We're doing it now. By the way, it's opening. The ships are coming back and forth. Without the United States. It just shows you, how can you have a country, how can you have a group of countries with that attitude? Look at Greenland. We should have Greenland to protect the world against Russia and China. The mention of it, all of a sudden they get, this country should not be paying trillions of dollars to NATO.
And Donald Trump says the war is close to being over. It's basically wrapped up. Let's play it.
Well, you keep saying was. Is this war over?
I think it's close to over, yeah. I view it as very close to over. You know what? If I pulled up stakes right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild that country. And we're not finished. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal very badly.
That's pretty unprecedented. Having direct talks like that.
I have talks with everybody, but it's very effective. I think you're going to have a great deal. I'm doing a great job for the country and for the world. We've had no help, 0 from NATO.
Well, I think I'm sharing with you data points that suggest it's not almost over. The U.S. is sending troops there. The blockade is a form of escalation. I think Iran sees what's happening. Iran is not going to deviate, or at least deviate significantly from its 10-point framework that it's always been talking about with Donald Trump, that Donald Trump previously agreed to. So if Donald Trump just thinks he's going to, just drag this out and drag this out and drag this out, I guess you can keep dragging it out, forever. But at some point, something's got to happen. And what you're doing is just systemically making the United States weaker. As I mentioned, you have Europe forming its own alliances and forming alliances elsewhere. Canada, Australia, all these countries. U.S. Is basically alone. America first is America alone right now. China asserting itself in the Middle East. The vacuum that's being created by America's lack of leadership, we're seeing, it be filled now with all these other things while Donald Trump behaves this way. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe and let's get to 7 million subscribers. And thanks for watching.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.